What is Craic NI all about? What do you do?
So basically we decided to get involved in Craic NI in September 2014. Craic NI is a consulting and training company which is focusing on delivering diversity and equality training to businesses, community organizations and government bodies across Northern Ireland.
How did you start the name?
We had a session to look at what our missions and aims were, and these sort of words came around: cultivate, respect, appreciate, inclusion, communities in Northern Ireland, and we could see CRAIC forming right in front of us. So we wondered, would it be okay to have the name Craic, or will we be taken seriously, or should we not have it and tell people that when we work in communities it's a good experience as opposed to a negative experience, and to have inclusion is positive. So we also believe that Craic is a word that belongs to Northern Ireland in all its contexts. It makes people happy, and we want to show them that by working together we can do Craic, because the hashtag is Craic.
No, it's really clever, to be honest. You know, I think anyone who's grown up in Northern Ireland or spent a long time in Northern Ireland will be really intrigued. You know, well, what's this about? It is, you know.
That's what's basically happening. There's plenty of people when they talk to us. They usually say, "Oh, I know you from Facebook. I know you from Twitter." And basically, Craic NI, it's easy to remember. It's a good name for the company. And when I mention and Eileen mentioned we are from Craic NI, people usually laugh. So this is how we break the first barrier with
and that's
people.
Really positive.
I mean, we are into diversity, work equality, anti-discrimination, that type of stuff, anti-hate. But sometimes connotations of those are quite negative, and we don't think that's the way Northern Ireland should move forward. We can all work together, and we do all have good Craic in Northern Ireland, you know. So therefore, Craic NI is to cultivate respect, appreciate inclusion across communities.
What experience do each of you have in civic engagement and community work?
Community work, I have 20 years experience, so this is a big step for me to come out of voluntary community work and to go into self-employment. So new era, going into business, to put it that way. It's been an exciting journey, I think, since last year. Great to learn. So yes, I've worked in the sector with Chinese communities, minority ethnic communities, and with the wider community. And most of it was really towards race relations work, developing good relations, building the communities that we had, from the Chinese community to when I was working in Ballymena, and I worked with Polish, Slovakian, Romanian and others. And my first role in being involved in community work was actually as a teacher of English as foreign language, and as an education liaison officer with adults and children. So I came from a training educator background way back then.
I think my experience, I came to Northern Ireland in 2004, and you know, I was supposed to be here just for 3 months. That was my initial idea. You know, my perception of Northern Ireland was completely different than what I think about this place now. The only thing I could actually hear about Northern Ireland in Poland, you know, was when there was something bad happening in Belfast or Northern Ireland. So when I said to my family I'm going to live in Belfast, they said, "Don't go, you're gonna die." So, you know, like, media were creating a very false image of Northern Ireland as a place full of conflict, terrorism and riots. When I arrived, I discovered that Northern Ireland is a really good place to stay, with, you know, nice people, very open and friendly. I decided to stay. 2006 I got involved in the community sector by establishing first Polish organization in Northern Ireland. For 2 years I've been working as a volunteer, and basically in that period we were able to deal with 3,500 clients only on Saturdays. So on top of my full-time job I had another full-time job on voluntary basis, and that led us to basically create a charity organization in 2009. So basically I was involved for nearly 5 years, mainly in building positive relationships between Polish and indigenous population in Northern Ireland, and also to provide support to Polish people who wanted to work and settle in Northern Ireland. So basically that was a very busy period for me, and very challenging as well, because I never had any experience in running an organization, and I had to learn everything from scratch. And then in 2012 but that was actually a brilliant period for me because I had the chance to learn more about the local community, more about Polish community, and basically how to find a bridge between to find a common ground. And as Eileen said, there was always a gap. There was always a gap in terms of training and diversity workshops. There was plenty of workshops provided by local people, which topic around diversity and cultural awareness, but there is very limited number of ethnic minorities being involved in delivering workshops. And actually, from our perspective, it's very important.
From ourselves, our own ethnic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we felt as a minority ethnic. Well, you can't use that word more because I'll be like, oh, I'm an ethnic and I'm a minority. But why can't we deliver the training? We have the experience.
We can provide perspective from both. From a perspective of someone who is part of the ethnic minority community, but as well as someone who is well integrated with the wider community in Northern Ireland.
And our partnership is Maciek is from EU national background. Although I was born here, I suppose you can see Chinese as non-EU. So if non-EU and EU joins up, we take over the world. We cover the world, but we can work that way.
This is quite unusual because Eileen, she's like Chinese, born in Northern Ireland in Craic. I'm Polish, who spent here 10 plus years. So basically our perspective sometimes is slightly different.
The word diversity keeps popping up. How important do you think diversity is to our lives and to the future of Northern Ireland?
I know how diversity is important for me. Basically, as a person who was born in Poland, I was for a period of time I was living in a very single identity community, where word ethnic minorities or where ethnic minority population wasn't really visible, and I discovered that there are actually different nationalities when I moved to States when I was 6 years of age. And when I came back to Poland, I said to myself, I don't really understand how people can live in such a closed environment. And this situation is very similar to what was happening in Northern Ireland for a period of time. Now we see more people from different countries coming here, bringing positive vibe, bringing different cultures, bringing food, art, music. And this place is becoming much more diverse. To be honest, life without diversity would be very boring, right? It would be just black and white.
Growing up here was the only Chinese schoolgirl in primary school. I was born in Belfast, but we moved to Carrick in the 70s. So going to primary school and be the only one Chinese was, I always craved to see others, and my world at the time was the TV and what you saw, and it sounds pathetic, but this world was the only thing I saw with all the different nationalities. And as a young girl, you go, whoa, the world can be like this, So growing up, you had to come to Belfast to see other Chinese children and to feel affinity with them and to understand we had the same issues at school or whatever. Most of us went to schools that were with the complete minority, very few of us, 1 or 2 or 3, and I was one also in grammar school. So there was a building up of knowing more about my own Chinese community, but as time went past, it got to about when I was 15 or 16, I had the opportunity in the youth group to organise fashion shows. And I got to organise a Chinese community fashion show, but then I was asked to work with the Indian community and organise an Indian-Chinese fashion show. So the connection was, this is really exciting. That was a way back then, and by 1990-something, NISM asked me to do a show for 5 ethnic groups. And then I met the Filipino and the Africans and Chinese and, so forth, Muslim. And I just went, this is brilliant, this type of world is great. And I always think, Northern Ireland has so much. It's much more than Protestant and Catholics, and we have a little world here.
I don't know if you saw, there was a recent programme by Trevor Phillips, and he mentioned that this fear that a lot of us have of trying to avoid offending or fear of being labelled as a racist or a bigot is really standing in the way of progress. In terms of diversity, what is your opinion on PC and political correctness?
I'm against.
Yeah?
I'm not a huge fan. I see basically people tend to use PC when they don't understand how to approach people from different countries, right? And in my opinion, this what actually kills integration. When we have more than one person, there might be an issue, right? And we have to learn how to approach and how to solve issue. And the best way to solve issue is to have a conversation. Sometimes the conversation has to be open. Sometimes it might be very difficult, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
When you politically correct, when you decide to basically avoid having a conversation with a person, you won't be able to solve issue, but you also will create another issue, which is anger. I think people should know how to behave, and I think there is a tiny line between not being politically correct and being rude or being racist.
Yeah.
You have to know which, what sort of approach you should have towards
Respect,
people.
maybe.
Exactly. The approach should be based on respect, and you should treat people how you would like to, how you would like to be treated by them.
You can't expect a politician to. They should know some of the right terms to speak. You know, not to speak out of term, but for a lot of communities, there's a time of. I think there's a space where they should be given to feel out of their comfort zone, maybe, and to understand the other communities. But it's a difficult process. I mean, Maciek was saying about in Poland, it was one single identity. So you come from that approach. Of course, you need to give it time and exposure, and it's about allowing that and not to jump to conclusions sometimes.
I've been dealing with several issues in terms of integration and community relations between Polish people and indigenous population in Northern Ireland. When I had the chance to actually get closer to people who were against Polish people or against migrants in general, they were actually seeing me as a part of their group. And usually they were saying, oh, Maciek, these Polish people are this and that. And I was like, hey guys, hold on, I'm Polish as well. And they were like, no, you're not Polish, you're Maciek, you're fine. But these Polish people, and I was like, guys, you can't really, say that you respect me because, I'm different Polish than a Polish person who is living next to you.
But it is two-way, we also have to realise that the ME or ethnic minority communities also have their prejudice and also have their probably political correctness as well. So
lack of it.
Lack of it. So it's not. You can't say it's the wider community or indigenous community that are wrong. It could be also the minority ethnic community. I mean, it's how you work past that and get to common issues.
Yeah, and there is an awful lot of actually positive work going on in Northern Ireland with regards to community relation and moving things forward, especially in the arts sector. What do you think what steps still need to take?
See, this is a very difficult question because how I see it, if you deal with adults living in Northern Ireland, majority of them would say they never had the chance to talk to persons from ethnic minority background, they never had the chance to basically spend time with other persons from ethnic minority background. But when you ask the same question, when dealing with youth, majority of them would say, oh, I have a friend from another country, or we have a classmate who is actually coming from another country. So you see that basically dynamics is changing. You have adults with lack of access to people from different countries, and you have youth and young people with friends from different countries. I think basically what we need, of course, a leadership, which in some cases in Northern Ireland is a very difficult and very tough discussion. But we also need to have more education, especially for community leaders and people who work for government and non-government organizations.
I've met a lot of people who are doing positive work, but a lot of groups are also being labelled as preaching to the converted. How do you think we can avoid that, or groups can avoid that?
I think it's the development process of getting to the hard to reach groups, or not the usual suspects, is the word. If you're going to do minority ethnic training, there's no point having 20 minority ethnic people at it. I think there's also something about sometimes approach where it's not so threatening. As you said, sometimes, we know that word is a hate crime training, which we have, which suits the time and the period, and it also suits the jargon of community safety and of policing. May not suit a local community group. We've just come to realisation, goodness, we need to work on this. An area does not want to be labelled
to be
racist or hate crimes. So it's about how can you break the barrier and work with people even before they hate crime. So if a community group actually knows their own community and is open and able to tell you, then we know what to work with.
Yeah.
And that's how you get down to community relations. So it's really, how do you get to know the people in the communities and know the communities?
I can give you a really good example. A year ago, I was involved in organizing a street ball tournament in the park, in Normal Park. We had 17 teams, representing maybe 27 countries were represented. And at the end of the day, we had girls, Sudanese basketball team. The girls decided just to pop up and play basketball for 15 minutes, and you could actually see that that place was actually multicultural. You had people from States, Canada, from South America, from Europe, several countries from Africa, Philippines, China playing basketball. And you felt, okay, I'm not in Belfast. Like for one day, I felt like I'm not in the typical Belfast, which is seeing for the Bayesian people like as not welcome place. And for me, it's just a stereotype. Belfast is very welcome. There is a small minority who would actually try to label this place as racist. But when you basically go and discover a real facing of Belfast, you realize that local people are very welcome and friendly.
Yeah, I think there's been an awful lot of negativity in the mass media surrounding integration, immigration, inclusion and these sorts of things, and I think that contributes to the negativity maybe in people's own minds. What would you suggest to people to challenge that in their everyday lives?
See, this is very difficult, especially now we face an election, and it seems that migration is one of the hottest topics at the moment.
It seems that now, even in Northern Ireland, local political parties are trying to play this card. We have to mention that at the moment, maybe the total migrant population is just 4% of entire population of Northern Ireland. So we're talking about a very tiny group in relation to the entire population. And nowadays, the word migrant has a very negative connotation, because when you basically check local media, if there is a negative story, it would be negative story about migrant. The word migrant would be mentioned several times in a very negative way, and I think people at the moment, when they talk about migrants, they talk about migration, the vision is very negative.
I find it strange now, because it wasn't a word in the 70s. No one ever called my father a migrant. They said the Chinese businessman, Chinese man, Chinese restaurant owner, whatever. If he came now, he'd be called a migrant. And I find it's quite peculiar. But he settled, he lived. Obviously I was born here, I have children here, so migrant I think is only just a time period, and it also strikes up like a barrier towards integration. I mean, if Maciek stays on and has his family here, will I still call Maciek a migrant? I mean, he's already been here 10 years.
See, I don't see myself as a migrant. I never, maybe at the beginning I was using the term migrant worker, which was even
Really? Did you make lots of money? That's the whole point of migrant worker. You should be rich now, 10 years later. We have to laugh about it, because people, and I know people talk to us and keep on talking to me about migrant workers as if I work with migrant workers. And I'm sitting going, where are they behind me? They're just members of the community.
See, after being here 10 years, I can say I'm fully integrated, and I see Northern Ireland as my home. So basically, if someone called me a migrant, I might feel uncomfortable.
Language is very, very important. It's something for Craic we can do when we're doing our training to make people think. Yes, there is a terminology. It's right for a period of time or a definition. But at the end of the day, everybody is a person.
It doesn't matter if you're an expat, migrant, or immigrant, you're all the same.
Expat would be good, they're rich.
Expat
usually means rich.
That's what I wanted to say.
It's positive.
It's the same. It's a different word, and it has a different,
It's really, people who sought an opportunity to go to the other world.
The concept is the same.
To open their eyes, make money.
It's just the connotations behind the word.
Exactly.
You mentioned that you deliver a lot of workshops. What do they entail?
One of our workshops is a hate crime awareness workshop, which is focusing on prevention of a hate crime. So basically it depends. It's a workshop which lasts between 3 hours and a full day, and we basically try to cover topics such hate crime, racism, myths and stereotypes, and how you should report and how you should prevent racism, which is very relevant to our current situation in Northern Ireland. The level of racism is rising, so we basically try to explain people and help them to realize how they can prevent racism and hate crime.
We would tease out what hate crime is from the very basics, from the very small innuendos or the little signs or the aggravating comments. For example, one that I always will bring up, even through this, I was with me for years, but I got to grow up and get over it, is, where are you from? So you go, I'm from Belfast. No, where are you really from? And I go, I wasn't born in Hong Kong and I wasn't born in China, so I am from Belfast and I'm from Northern Ireland. I have a British passport, you know, so it goes on. But yeah, that sort of little question, it depends on the tone, and it's recognising the tone. Sometimes it's lovely and the other times, you know, it's got a different meaning to it.
When you have a chat with a migrant and you know that someone maybe is from a different country, you assume that person can't speak English. So you start talking loud and you start to shout at person, right?
So speaking slow.
Exactly, yeah. And then sometimes you're like, listen, I speak English, so why are you shouting? It's actually the same situation where you're from.
And we also run specific cultural awareness sessions, particularly from our own backgrounds. So I can cover Chinese cultural awareness, Maciek Polish, and we have Margaret Traveller, and we're still developing the other work with the other BME communities.
You guys, I think, have been doing a little bit of work with Queen's University and the University of Ulster on the Translating Values project. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
This is actually a very interesting training because, project. The Translating Value is an international cooperation between several universities. In Northern Ireland, Piotr Budzinski from Queen's University and John Gillespie from University of Ulster is in charge of it. And basically they try to talk to people from different ethnic minority background to see, especially people who speak English, who have a good English level of English, to see, is it possible to translate values? Is it possible to translate yourself fully when speaking different language? And this is quite interesting because some people might say, okay, when I speak my own language, I'm actually more alive. But when I'm speaking English, I'm more common.
I actually find that really, really interesting, having lived away for a long time myself. And I think even if you're fluent in the language, there are sometimes, you just can't get the same meaning across. And I don't know if it's because it's values or it's cultural, but there's something there that
there's something missing.
That you can't always get the same. You can say the words, but you don't get the same message across.
Sometimes you can't find a word which would be exactly the same in a different language, and you can't translate it. So, for example, if you would like to use a word which is a single word in your language, to describe the same meaning, for example, in English, you have to use 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah. So anyone who's interested in getting in contact or working with Craic NI, how can they get in contact with you?
First of all, website www.craicni.com. That's right. Twitter, Facebook. Our email is info@craicni.com.
And just quickly before we finish up, a little bit about the place we are today, 10 Foundations.
10 Foundations is a charity that works in Philippines, in Balayan, runs an orphanage, and it looks after vulnerable children and families in the area. It has a feeding program of over 300 kids are there, so people have like a self-help group that are making bags out of recycled materials. You can see the SN bags behind us, just cartons of recycled materials. They can make these bags and it helps sustain their lives.
And you have to mention they have a really nice coffee.
Yeah. We're selling it better than Craic. Yes, don't forget Craic. Yeah, we're #GoodCraic, by the way.
Wonderful, guys. Thank you very, very much for chatting with me today.
Thank you very much.